At some point, you start realizing that everything you ever chased was only a mirror for something internal. That all the money, recognition, and validation you once wanted were just symbols of a deeper hunger. The hunger to feel enough, to feel seen, to feel safe inside your own existence. And when you finally start giving yourself those things instead of begging the world for them, your life becomes different, calmer, but more vivid. Because fulfillment stops being a finish line and becomes a posture, a way of standing inside the chaos, and you stop running from moments and start standing inside them. Even the painful ones, even the boring ones. Because you realize that no part of life is wasted if you're present for it. The laughter, the heartbreak, the failures, the small victories, the nights that broke you and the mornings that rebuilt you, they all belong. They're all chapters in the same story. And once you start honoring them as lessons instead of judging them as losses, you free yourself from the endless loop of what if, and you start living the answer instead. You begin to trust that everything that has happened was necessary, even the mistakes, even the detours, because they gave you texture. They made you human. They carved empathy into your character. And that empathy is what connects you to others, because the older you get, the more you understand that connection is the real currency of life. That nobody remembers the cars or the clothes, but they always remember how you made them feel. They remember the words that steadied them, the small moments when you showed up. And you start measuring wealth in peace, not possessions, in alignment, not applause, in depth, not distance. And the truth is, you can live a rich life in a quiet room if your mind is your friend. Because all external wealth is wasted on an inner poverty of perspective. So nurture your inner world like a garden. Watch what you plant there. Feed it with books, silence, good conversations, meaningful work. And protect it from gossip, noise, envy. Because the world will constantly try to rent space in your head for free. And it's your job to set the rent high enough that only truth can afford to stay. Learn to enjoy the slowness between the milestones, because life isn't a highlight reel. It's mostly small in-between moments. And that's not a flaw, that's design. Because meaning isn't found in intensity, it's found in continuity, and showing up every day for the simple things that hold you together. The cup of coffee, the walk, the journal, the call to someone who matters, the discipline that grounds you, those are the true luxuries. The ability to live deliberately instead of reactively. And as time passes, you'll watch people come and go. Dreams evolve, goals shift, and you'll realize that everything is temporary. And that's not sad, it's sacred. Because temporariness makes everything precious. The fleeting nature of life is what gives it color. So stop fearing endings. They give meaning to beginnings. And understand that letting go doesn't mean losing, it means making room for something new. And if you can master the art of graceful detachment, you'll carry lightness wherever you go. You'll stop clinging and start flowing. You'll stop demanding and start receiving. And you'll finally understand that control was never the goal, presence was. When you live this way, regrets start dissolving because you stop waiting for perfect conditions to start living. You start realizing that the right time is always now. And that the people who do something extraordinary with their lives aren't the ones with better luck. They're the ones who stopped negotiating with their excuses. They acted. They stumbled, they adjusted, they kept going. And the universe, as if testing their sincerity, opened doors only for those who kept knocking. And when you've lived like that long enough, something changes inside you. You stop fearing failure, you stop worshiping success, you stop comparing, you stop pretending, and you start being. Simply being. Awake, alive, aware. And in that awareness, you find a kind of peace that no achievement can buy. The peace of knowing you are enough, even in progress, that you don't have to perform to deserve existence, that just by breathing, learning, and trying, you are fulfilling your purpose. And maybe that's the ultimate lesson life keeps trying to teach us beneath all its noise, that we were never supposed to become perfect, just real. And if you can reach the end of your life knowing you lived honestly, that you felt deeply, that you loved without pride and tried without fear, then you have lived more than most, because the measure of a life well lived is not how high you climbed, but how true you stayed to yourself while climbing. And that truth, once found, is unshakable. Because when everything else fades, and it will, that truth will be the only thing left standing beside you in the silence, whispering, "You did it. You really lived." You will spend a large part of your life trying to understand what it all means, and the answer will change every decade, because meaning is not discovered, it's created, and it changes shape as you do. At 17, it might look like freedom. At 25, it might look like success. At 40, it might look like peace. And that's the point. It evolves. You are not supposed to lock yourself into a single definition of happiness or purpose. You are supposed to outgrow each version of yourself, shed it like old skin, and keep walking. And if you can accept that evolution instead of resisting it, you will suffer less. Because most pain comes from trying to stay the same in a world that keeps changing, from fighting the current instead of learning to swim with it. The world moves, and so must you. And growth will ask you to let go of things you thought you'd need forever: people, goals, identities. And you'll want to cling to them because they feel familiar. But remember this: the things that brought you here are not always the things that will take you there. Seasons end. Chapters close. You can honor them without staying in them. There's no betrayal in leaving. The real betrayal is pretending you're happy when you've outgrown the environment that once felt like home. So move on with gratitude, not guilt. The past built you, but it doesn't define you. And while you move forward, don't rush to arrive anywhere, because there is no finish line. Arrival is an illusion. Every mountain peak is just the floor for the next climb. And you don't have to know where every path leads. You just have to take the next honest step. Because clarity is built through motion, not contemplation. Stop waiting for certainty. Start walking and let direction reveal itself as you move. And somewhere along the way, you'll realize that most of the things you used to worry about don't matter. The people forget, circumstances shift, and the only constant is how you handled yourself when nothing was certain. That's character. And character is the only currency that never devalues. Learn to forgive quickly, not because people deserve it, but because resentment is an anchor and you can't sail carrying anchors. Forgive even when they don't apologize, because forgiveness isn't for them, it's for your peace. And understand that love, real love, isn't possession, it's presence. It's letting people be fully themselves and still choosing to stay kind. And that applies to self-love too. You don't have to be perfect to be proud of yourself. You just have to be honest. Stop talking to yourself like you're your own enemy. The world is already harsh enough. You don't need to join the attack. Talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you're responsible for protecting, because you are responsible for you. And don't get so caught up in building a future that you forget to live the present. You're chasing moments that you'll later call the good old days. So slow down and actually notice them. The smell of rain, the sound of your friends' laughter, the quiet satisfaction after finishing something difficult. These are not filler scenes in your movie. They are the movie. And if you keep waiting for life to begin after the next milestone, you'll wake up one day realizing you missed it entirely. So live now, not later. And when you fail, and you will, don't dramatize it. Failure isn't a wall, it's a mirror. It shows you what still needs work, and once you fix it, move on. Life won't stop to judge you, it will just give you the next test. So stop fearing mistakes and start fearing stagnation. Because mistakes are motion, but stagnation is decay. And you are meant to move, to change, to learn, to feel, to create,
to leave something behind that whispers, "I was here," long after you're gone. And when that day comes, when your time runs out and everything you built fades into memory, the only thing that will matter is whether you lived fully or merely endured, whether you grew or just survived, whether you left the world a bit lighter than you found it. And if you can answer yes to that, if you can meet your final moment knowing you used your time, your strength, your love, your voice to the best of your ability, then you will have lived well. And that is all anyone can hope for. So stop hesitating, stop doubting, stop waiting. Start now, because this moment, the one you are breathing through right now, is the only one you will ever truly own. And everything you dream of becomes possible the moment you begin to act like your life depends on it, because in the end, it does.
And in the end, when everything slows down and the noise finally fades, you will understand that life was never something to master. It was something to experience, something to feel with your whole being, something to lose yourself in and then find yourself through. You will sit with the quiet, maybe for the first time without fear, and it will not feel like emptiness. It will feel like completion, the gentle ache of having lived fully. You will look around and realize how fragile it all was, how quickly it moved, how the moments you once rushed through were the ones that actually held everything you were chasing. You'll remember the laughter that echoed through hallways you no longer walk, the faces that aged, the dreams that changed shape, the seasons that left their mark on your soul. You'll remember how pain once felt eternal, how heartbreak once seemed unbearable, how fear once paralyzed you. And you'll smile because you made it through all of it, every storm, every failure, every night you swore you wouldn't survive. And not only did you survive, you grew, you softened, you learned how to stay open in a world that constantly tried to harden you. You look back and realize that courage was never about being unafraid, it was about being terrified and still choosing to move. That love was never about finding someone who completed you, but about becoming someone who was whole enough to love without needing. That success was never about applause or numbers, but about waking up in the morning at peace with who you are. You'll see that the people who left taught you how to stand alone, and the ones who stayed showed you what unconditional presence feels like. You'll see that every rejection redirected you toward alignment, that every ending was a quiet beginning in disguise, and that nothing real was ever lost. It was transformed, recycled into something you were meant to carry forward in a new form. You'll start to laugh at how tightly you used to hold on to things, how you used to fight life as if it were your enemy. And you'll realize that the moment you stopped demanding control and started trusting flow, everything began to make sense. You'll remember all the versions of yourself you've been. The naive one, the angry one, the ambitious one, the broken one, the hopeful one. And you'll love them all, because each of them was necessary. Each of them walked through fire so you could stand here now. You'll whisper thank you to the mistakes, to the tears, to the loneliness, because they shaped your empathy, your patience, your wisdom. You'll finally see how beautiful imperfection really was, how the cracks in your story let light in, how the mess made the masterpiece. You'll understand that growth was never linear, that healing was never complete, that peace was something you built moment by moment, not a destination you arrived at once and for all. And as your mind grows quiet, you'll feel an overwhelming gratitude, not for the things you gained, but for the awareness you earned. You'll realize that the best parts of life were never the achievements. They were the simple things you took for granted. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of rain against the window, the hug that lasted a second too long, the late-night talks that turned strangers into family, The mornings that smelled like coffee and possibility. You'll realize that happiness was always there, hidden in ordinary moments, waiting for you to slow down enough to notice it. You'll remember the people you loved, the ones who walked with you for a while, and the ones who stayed until the end. And you'll feel no bitterness, only gratitude that you got to know them, even if briefly, because love was never meant to last forever in form. It was meant to transform you forever in essence. You'll finally understand that loss is just the cost of loving deeply, and that it's always worth the price. You'll think about how much time you spent worrying, doubting, comparing, and you'll smile sadly, because you'll know how small those things truly were compared to the vastness of existence, how fear was just a shadow cast by a mind that forgot its own power. And if you're lucky, you'll forgive yourself for the years you wasted, for the people you hurt, for the dreams you abandoned, for the times you didn't know better. You'll forgive others too, not because they deserve it, but because you'll finally understand that holding on to anger was like carrying stones uphill, and you'll be too tired for that kind of weight. You'll find peace in knowing that nothing was random, that everything served its purpose, even the heartbreaks, even the silence, even the mistakes that once made you hate yourself. You'll see that destiny was never a straight road. It was a web of choices and chances, and you were weaving it all along, even when you thought you were lost. You'll stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "Thank you." You'll feel your body grow heavier, but your spirit lighter. And in that balance, you'll understand that death was never the enemy. It was just the next transformation, the next chapter in a story too vast for one lifetime. You'll feel fear trying to return one last time, but it won't stay, because you'll finally see that fear was always just love, disguised as uncertainty, the mind's way of reminding you to cherish what you have. You'll close your eyes, not in defeat, but in deep rest, the kind you've been chasing for years, the kind that comes only when you've made peace with every piece of your past. And as you drift into that final stillness, memories will pass through you like light. Your first joy, your first heartbreak, your first loss, your first victory, and you'll see the pattern. Everything was a lesson in letting go. Every experience, every emotion was preparing you for this exact moment, this exhale, this surrender. You'll think of all the people who will remain after you, the ones who will miss you, the ones who will remember you. And you'll realize that you don't need monuments, you don't need statues, you don't need your name carved in stone, because you carved it into the living hearts of others. And that's where it will stay. Your words, your kindness, your courage, they will echo in ways you'll never see. And that is enough. You'll feel the air grow thin, the world blur, and for a second, everything will dissolve. Your fears, your desires, your thoughts, your name, and what remains will be the pure awareness that you were part of something vast, something eternal, something divine. And in that realization, you'll smile, because you'll finally know that there was never anything to prove, that you were enough from the beginning, that existence itself was the miracle. And just before the final breath leaves your body, you'll whisper one last truth, the one that only those who truly lived can understand, that the point of it all, the reason for every struggle, every joy, every tear, was never to last forever. It was to be felt completely. That love was the lesson, growth was the reward, and peace was the destination you carried within you all along. And as everything fades into silence, you'll know with absolute certainty that you did not waste your time here. You lived, and that was everything. Then listen, because if you understand this next part, you will walk differently through the rest of your life, softer, wiser, unshaken. There comes a point when you stop trying to control everything and begin to participate in it instead. When you stop demanding that the world bend to your plan and start dancing with it as it is. When you realize that the universe was never punishing or rewarding you, only responding to your energy, echoing back what you gave it. And the moment that clicks, everything changes because you stop operating from fear and start acting from intention. You start choosing with care. You start speaking less and meaning more. You stop rushing because you finally understand that time spent fully alive is never wasted. You begin to see how every little act of awareness expands your life. The way you look at someone when you listen, the way you slow your breath before you answer, the way you walk outside and actually feel the air instead of just moving through it. That's living, not the performance that everyone posts about, but the quiet, private, sacred act of being conscious in your own story. And that is where real strength hides. It's not in dominance or noise, it's in gentleness under pressure, in kindness without weakness, in knowing you could harm but choosing to heal instead. That's power. And when you live like that, you stop attracting chaos, because chaos cannot survive in a space of calm conviction. You start meeting better people, or maybe the same people become better in your presence because energy is contagious and you stopped feeding yours to nonsense. You will start protecting peace the way you once protected your ego. You'll stop entering every argument that invites you. Stop attending every drama that begs for attention. And not because you're detached, but because you're finally mature enough to know that not everything deserves an answer. You'll become selective, not out of arrogance, but wisdom. Selective with your time, with your attention, with your words, because you'll realize they are finite, they are precious. And spending them on what doesn't grow you is a slow suicide of potential. So you'll simplify, and the world will misinterpret that as loss, but you'll feel lighter. You'll see how minimalism isn't just for possessions, but for thought, for emotion, for connection. You'll learn to prune your inner garden, to remove the weeds of resentment and the dead leaves of regret, because everything you hold on to grows something, and not everything deserves to grow. The art of life is selective growth, the discipline of pruning, the wisdom to let die what no longer serves the season you're in. And somewhere in that simplicity, you'll begin to see the threads connecting everything, how the job you lost led you to the opportunity that changed your life, how the heartbreak that shattered you taught you empathy that later healed someone else, how the failure you cursed was actually a detour away from something that would have destroyed you. You'll start to laugh at the arrogance you once had when you thought you understood fate. You'll stop labeling events as good or bad and start calling them necessary. You'll start trusting timing, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. It teaches you patience when you need humility and gives you success when you're finally ready to hold it without ego. And as you keep walking, you'll notice something else, that growth doesn't make life easier, it makes you stronger. That peace doesn't erase problems, it changes your posture toward them. That maturity doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop being controlled by what you feel. You'll begin to hold joy and pain in the same hand, understanding that both are part of the same cycle of aliveness. You'll stop waiting for the storm to pass and instead learn how to find stillness within it. You'll begin to trust yourself with the silence between achievements, the spaces between people, the pauses between heartbeats. You'll stop seeing emptiness as lack and start seeing it as canvas. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you're not chasing life anymore. You're living it. You're not performing peace, you are peace. You'll walk into rooms and bring calm instead of seeking it. You'll speak less, but your words will land heavier. You'll move slower, but further. You'll give freely, but expect nothing, because fulfillment comes from expression, not exchange. You'll understand that everything you create, every word, every gesture, every moment of presence, is a ripple that travels outward far beyond your awareness. You'll see legacy not as something that begins after death, but as something you write every morning with how you treat people, with how you treat yourself. And when the years have passed, when the urgency has quieted, when your body has aged but your mind has softened, you'll sit somewhere, maybe by the sea, maybe by a window, maybe in a garden you planted long ago. And you'll feel a strange and wonderful contentment, not because everything went according to plan, but because you learned to love the parts that didn't. You'll look back and realize the purpose was never perfection, it was participation. It was the courage to keep showing up, to keep learning, to keep becoming. You'll smile at your younger self, the one who was always in a hurry, always comparing, always scared, and you'll whisper, "It was all worth it. Every fall, every doubt, every detour. Because all of it, every pain, every joy, every choice brought you here to this exact moment of quiet truth." And in that moment, you'll know this was life. This was the point all along.
You have to stop treating your goals like wishes and start treating them like obligations, because the difference between people who change their lives and people who keep waiting is not luck, it's a decision to make progress non-negotiable. You don't need grand plans. You need to wake up and do the next right thing until it compounds, because everything in life compounds. Effort compounds, learning compounds, discipline compounds. The problem is that most people quit before the curve bends in their favor. They plant the seed and walk away because they don't see the tree. They don't realize that growth happens underground before it happens in public. The roots form in silence. The leaves appear later. And if you can be patient while nothing seems to happen, you will eventually experience the phase when everything happens at once and everyone calls it sudden success, even though you know it took years of quiet work. So build in the dark. Build without applause. Build until your existence becomes proof, not opinion. And while you build, learn to simplify, because simplicity is clarity and clarity is power. Remove the noise, the gossip, the distractions, the habits that don't move you forward. Half of discipline is just subtraction. People talk about focus as if it's addition, but real focus is cutting, deleting, refusing, saying no to the 10th thing so you can do the first thing with full force. And once you simplify, you begin to see the patterns. You begin to see that the same energy you waste doubting yourself could build something if redirected. Doubt is just misused imagination. Every "what if I fail" can become "what if I win" if you shift where you aim it. And that mental shift alone can change your trajectory more than any external event. The inner world always builds the outer. And that's why self-discipline is the highest form of freedom. People think freedom is doing whatever you want, but that's chaos. Real freedom is having control over what you do and what you don't, over when you speak and when you stay silent, over when you rest and when you push. The person who can control themselves doesn't need to control anyone else. They walk calmly because their peace isn't for sale, and that calm power is magnetic. People start trusting you, opportunities start aligning, not because of fate, but because stability attracts everything unstable that's searching for a foundation. So become a foundation, become reliable, be the one who delivers, and your life will change faster than you ever thought possible. And when it does, stay humble, because arrogance ruins more destinies than failure ever did. The moment you start thinking you're above the basics is the moment you start declining. So keep sweeping the floor, keep learning the craft, keep remembering that success is rented and rent is due every morning. Gratitude keeps you grounded, arrogance makes you blind, and life has a way of humbling those who forget that. So when you win, be kind. And when you lose, be even kinder, because no matter how far you go, the measure of your success will always be how you treat people who can't give you anything in return. And don't let this world convince you that kindness is weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It takes nothing to be cruel, but it takes immense control to stay kind when life tempts you to be bitter. Learn to forgive, not because they deserve peace, but because you deserve freedom. Carrying resentment is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. Drop it and move lighter, because all the things you think you own eventually own you. Everything you cling to too tightly becomes a chain. So move through life like a river. Touch everything, but stay attached to nothing. Flow, adapt, stay in motion, and you will always find a way forward. In the end, that's all this really is. Movement. The courage to keep walking when nobody's watching, the strength to build when you're tired, the wisdom to listen when ego wants to speak, the grace to start again when life knocks you down, because it will. And that's not tragedy, that's rhythm. You fall, you rise, you learn, you repeat, and through that repetition, you become unstoppable, not because the world finally became easy, but because you finally became enough for the world.
Then understand this. Every stage of your life will demand a new version of you, and if you try to survive each chapter using the habits, thoughts, and fears from the last, you'll feel like you're walking in shoes that no longer fit, too small for your growth, too tight for the path ahead. And that's why so many people feel lost even when they're doing everything right. Because right changes, and the version of you that once thrived under one set of conditions can suffocate under another. So your job isn't to stay consistent to your old self, your job is to stay loyal to your evolution, to keep asking, who am I becoming, and what does that version need? Not want, but need. And when you start answering that question honestly, you realize that growth always asks for a trade. To gain peace, you trade chaos. To gain strength, you trade comfort. To gain purpose, you trade distraction. Nothing is free. And that's good because payment keeps you conscious of value, and what costs you nothing teaches you nothing. So don't fear the price of progress, fear the debt of stagnation, because the interest on inaction is regret, and regret compounds faster than anything else. Start choosing difficult things on purpose. Pick one area of life and make it your discipline gym. Learn to tolerate the boredom of doing the same necessary thing over and over until it stops being discipline and becomes identity. That's how athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs separate from the crowd, not because they're obsessed with winning, but because they're loyal to process. They found meaning in repetition. They learned to fall in love with the loop. And if you want mastery in any form, you have to find that love too. Because mastery isn't a gift, it's devotion expressed daily. It's the humility to stay a student even after you start teaching. And when you approach your work, your relationships, your goals like a student, you never run out of curiosity. And curiosity keeps you young even when your body ages. But curiosity without patience turns into chaos. So pair them. Curiosity to explore, patience to endure. And suddenly life feels lighter because you no longer demand instant results. You start trusting process, and you begin enjoying the small wins that happen on the way. The morning you woke up before your alarm, the day you read instead of scrolled, the time you said no without guilt. These micro wins are bricks in the wall of self-respect, and every time you stack one, you feel a little more solid inside. And that solidity is what people mistake for confidence. Confidence isn't thinking you'll always succeed. It's knowing you'll survive even if you don't. It's quiet. It's built from evidence, not affirmations. Evidence collected through every small promise you kept to yourself. So keep collecting, make it a ritual, stack your proof until doubt runs out of oxygen. And as your proof grows, so will your capacity to face risk. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's evidence outweighing fear. It's walking forward saying, I've done hard things before, I can do them again. And once you live that way, the world opens. Not because it changed, but because you did. People will ask you for advice, and you'll realize you don't have formulas. You just have habits. And those habits have carried you through storms. They've given you structure when emotions wanted to hijack you. And that's when you understand that discipline is not restriction, it's protection. It keeps you free from your own chaos. It guards your focus so you can aim it. And focus, once aimed, is the most dangerous weapon you own. Because most of the world is distracted, drowning in noise, sedated by comfort. And when you're focused, you look like a magician because you're doing what almost nobody can, paying attention, staying present, enduring boredom long enough for results to appear.
And that's why life starts rewarding you in ways that feel unfair, because unfairness cuts both ways. If you live lazily, life feels unfair against you. But if you live deliberately, it starts feeling unfair for you. Opportunities align, timing works, luck seems to find you. But that's not luck, that's compound cause and effect. That's alignment earned through patience. That's the universe saying you've proven you can handle more. And when that happens, don't shrink, don't apologize, don't dim your light to make others comfortable, shine. Because light doesn't take away from darkness, it shows people the way out. And if your light offends them, let it. You're not responsible for their readiness. You're responsible for your radiance, for the strength you were given, for the potential that would be wasted if you kept playing small. So stop hiding behind humility disguised as fear. Stop pretending you're average to fit in. The world doesn't need more people blending into the background. It needs examples of what's possible. And maybe your story, your consistency, your courage is exactly that example. Maybe someone you'll never meet will choose not to give up because they saw you keep going. And that's legacy. Not fame, not monuments, not followers, but impact rippling quietly through lives you never knew you touched. And if you can live with that awareness, that every honest step forward is leaving a trace of light for someone else, then you'll never again wonder if it's worth it, because you'll know it always was.
The sooner you realize that time is the only currency that can't be refunded, the clearer everything becomes. Because you can recover money, rebuild reputation, heal from heartbreak, but you will never get back an hour that you traded for distraction. So guard your hours like treasure and ask before every choice, does this buy me a better tomorrow or just numb me for today? Most people live as if they have forever. They plan as if the clock isn't running, but the clock is running and the sand is sliding, and the difference between people who live fully and people who merely exist is awareness. Awareness that every conversation, every sunrise, every boring commute, every meal is a piece of the only story you'll ever write. And once you see life that way, you stop chasing artificial urgency and start building real presence. You stop scrolling for meaning and start living it. And that awareness will hurt at first because you'll see how much time you've burned on people and habits that gave nothing back. But that pain is good. It's clarity. It's the moment when you wake up inside your own life. And from that point forward, you begin to edit your existence. You start deleting what dilutes you. You start keeping what nourishes you. You become selective not out of arrogance but out of respect for your own energy. And slowly your world gets smaller but deeper, quieter but richer. And you'll notice that when you stop trying to impress everyone, the right people start appearing, not because they were missing, but because you finally made space for them. That's how alignment works. You don't chase it, you clean the noise until it finds you. And you'll still have chaos, nobody escapes it, but it will be productive chaos, the kind that grows you instead of the kind that drains you. So stop waiting for balance, start aiming for harmony. Balance implies equal weight. Harmony means every part knows its rhythm. Some days you'll sprint, some days you'll crawl. Both count if they move you. And remember that comparison is poison. It turns gratitude into envy and progress into panic. You don't see other people's costs, only their highlights. So measure yourself only against who you were last month, last year, yesterday. That's the only race you can win. You'll also learn that happiness isn't an emotion to chase, but a side effect of meaning. You won't always feel happy, but you can always feel useful. And usefulness creates fulfillment that pleasure can't touch. Find something or someone to serve. It could be a craft, a cause, a person. Service gives direction when motivation dies. And when fear comes back, and it will, remember that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action through it. Everyone feels fear. The strong just treat it as a signal to prepare, not a command to retreat. So when you feel scared, instead of asking, what if it goes wrong? Ask, what if I'm supposed to learn something here? Every fear hides a lesson. Every obstacle hides a doorway. The map of growth is written in discomfort. And finally, Keep a sense of humor about all of it. Take the work seriously, but not yourself. Laugh at your mistakes. They lose power when you do. Because life will never be perfectly aligned, it will always be slightly absurd, unpredictable, and that's what makes it worth living. It keeps you humble. It keeps you curious. And curiosity is the purest form of intelligence. The moment you stop asking questions, you start dying while still breathing. So stay curious, stay learning, stay moving, stay alive in every sense of the word. And when the noise of the world gets too loud, just come back to this simple truth. You are here, right now, alive, capable, unfinished. And that's more than enough to start again.
Listen to me. Before you do anything, before you quit, before you give up on your dream, your life, or yourself, stop. Close your eyes. Breathe. Forget what time it is. Forget what day it is. Forget the noise of your life, the phone, the messages, the deadlines, the pressure. Just listen, because what you are about to hear is not motivation. It's not comfort. It's not a soft pat on the back telling you that everything will magically get better. This is truth. Raw, cold, uncomfortable truth. The truth that might hurt, but it will save you. You want to give up. I know. You've been carrying this weight for so long that it feels like your bones are cracking under it. You wake up every morning wondering if today will be different, and somehow it never is. You keep fighting the same invisible war against fear, against pain, against yourself. And you're tired. You don't tell anyone how heavy it's gotten, how lonely it feels, how quiet the world becomes when your motivation dies. You just move through the day like a ghost, half alive, half asleep, pretending you're fine when you're not. You smile when people ask how you're doing, because it's easier than explaining the storm inside your head. But when you're alone, the truth shows itself. You're not fine. You're breaking. You've tried again and again to rebuild, to restart, to reignite that fire you used to have. But every time, life seems to crush you harder. You've been humiliated, ignored, abandoned, underestimated, disappointed. And now, that little voice in your head is whispering that maybe you were never meant to win, that maybe all your effort was a waste, that maybe this pain will never end, that maybe quitting isn't weakness, maybe it's mercy. But I need you to understand something so clearly that it shakes the foundation of your mind. You are not tired of life. You are tired of fighting alone, tired of losing faith, tired of expecting the world to reward you just because you're trying. The truth is, life doesn't care how tired you are. It doesn't care how many times you failed. It doesn't care how much you wanted. It only responds to persistence. And right now, in this very moment, when everything in you wants to quit, this is where most people stop. This is where they turn around, delete everything, disappear, settle, surrender. But not you. Not here. Not today. Because you're still listening. That means there's a part of you that refuses to die. A small, quiet part that still believes there's more for you than this. That voice, the one you keep ignoring, that's not foolishness. That's your future self calling you from across time, begging you to keep going just a little longer. Because the truth is, you don't need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You just need to keep walking until you become the light yourself. Every great person you've ever admired has felt this exact pain,
Every champion, every genius, every legend, every name that inspired you, they all stood exactly where you are right now, looking at the ground, shaking, broken, and asking, what's the point? The difference is not that they were stronger. The difference is that they decided to suffer one more day, to fight one more time, to show up one more morning. That's it. They didn't see the whole staircase. They just took one step in the dark again and again until the light appeared. You think they didn't cry? You think they didn't want to quit? You think they didn't doubt themselves? They did. But they also realized something that you must understand right now. Pain is not punishment. Pain is preparation. The suffering you feel is the proof that something inside you is evolving, that your old self, the weaker, softer, fearful version of you, is dying. Every breakdown you've had wasn't failure, it was transformation. Every rejection wasn't loss, it was direction. Every moment of darkness wasn't punishment, it was training. The universe is not ignoring you, it's building you. But it doesn't build people in comfort. It builds them in chaos. It builds them in silence. It builds them in despair. It builds them when they think they've lost everything, because only then are you empty enough to be filled with something new. You don't find strength when life is kind. You find it when life is cruel. When life breaks you into 1,000 pieces and you decide to rebuild again, not because you're sure it will work, but because you refuse to end here. That's strength. That's power. That's who you were meant to be. And I know right now it feels endless, the pain, the doubt, the exhaustion, but every storm eventually ends. Every night eventually meets the sunrise, and when the light finally touches your face, you will look back and realize that this pain was never your enemy. It was your teacher. It was your forge. It was the reason you became unbreakable. You will look back and thank yourself for not giving up tonight, for not listening to that voice that told you to stop. Because if you quit now, you will never know how close you were. And that thought, the idea that you almost made it but stopped right before, will haunt you for the rest of your life. So before you give up, breathe. Cry if you must. Scream if you have to. But don't stop. Not here, not now. You've come too far to end the story before it becomes beautiful. This moment, this exact second, is not the end. It's the turning point. The part in every great story where the hero almost loses before he rises. You are in that moment. And if you can survive this, if you can push through tonight, you will never be the same again. You don't need to believe in miracles. You just need to believe in endurance. You don't need to have hope. You just need to have patience. You don't need to know how. You just need to know why. And the why is simple. Because the future version of you, the one living the life you dream of, is watching this moment right now, whispering one thing: don't stop here.
You think the universe owes you something for your suffering, but it doesn't. You think your pain should guarantee reward, but it won't. The world doesn't hand out medals for endurance. It gives opportunities to the ones still standing when everyone else has fallen. That's the law of existence. You survive long enough, and life eventually has to yield. Every moment you stay in the fight while others quit, the odds tilt a little more in your favor. Discipline is not about heroism. It's about attrition. Every rep, every late night, every early morning is another quiet vote for the person you want to become. You don't notice the votes piling up at first. You'll feel like nothing is changing, like all the effort is dissolving into the void.
But one day you'll wake up and realize the void is gone. You filled it with work, with focus, with scars, with the kind of progress that doesn't vanish when motivation does. And when that day comes, you'll understand that the pain was never the enemy. Apathy was. Pain teaches you that you still care. It proves you're still alive. People who feel nothing have already surrendered. So stop asking for the struggle to end. Ask to grow strong enough to carry it. Every time you move through suffering, instead of running from it, you raise your threshold for life. The world becomes quieter. Distractions lose their power. You stop chasing pleasure and start chasing purpose. The same things that used to drain you start to feed you. That's the paradox of growth. The same weight that once broke you becomes your training partner. Most people spend their lives looking for shortcuts, praying for an easier route. But there is no easy route to meaning. There's only the long road, the one paved with repetition, boredom, and doubt. The reason that road feels so empty is because almost nobody has the courage to walk it. But the few who do, the ones who keep going long after the excitement dies, they find something sacred: peace. Not the peace of stillness, but the peace of knowing that no matter what happens, you will not betray yourself again. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that you no longer need external validation, that your discipline itself is the validation. Imagine feeling unstoppable not because the world loves you, but because you no longer need its permission. That's what's waiting for you beyond this phase, and it's closer than you think. The next time you wake up and that heaviness in your chest whispers, "I can't do this anymore," don't argue with it. Agree, but add one word: today. Tell it, "I can't do this anymore today." Then go through the motions anyway. Make it through the day. Because when tomorrow comes, you'll realize you were lying. You could do it. You just didn't want to feel the discomfort of doing it. Every single day you repeat that process, your tolerance for discomfort grows. The voice of weakness becomes smaller. You stop negotiating with your emotions because you finally understand that feelings are just weather. They pass. Discipline is the climate. It remains. There will be days when you hate yourself for caring this much. Days when your reflection looks like a stranger because you've outgrown who you were. Days when you question whether it's worth it. And in those moments, remember this: success is not built on inspiration, it's built on repetition. Inspiration is gasoline. It burns hot and dies fast. Discipline is the engine. It keeps running, mile after mile, long after the excitement is gone. You are building that engine now. You are learning how to move forward without fuel, how to keep going in the dark. That's what separates you from the masses. Most people wait for the light to act. Warriors act until the light appears. You might think you need hope, but you don't. Hope is fragile. What you need is resolve. Resolve doesn't care how you feel. Resolve doesn't ask for proof. Resolve doesn't bargain with excuses. It simply says, "I'll finish this no matter what." That mindset turns ordinary people into legends. It's not talent, it's repetition under pressure. Everyone wants to be remembered, but few want to endure the years of invisibility required before anyone notices. Those years are where the foundation is built, and you're in them now. Don't waste them wishing for an audience. Build so quietly that when the noise finally arrives, it can't shake what you've constructed. If you've been rejected, good. If you failed, good. If you feel lost, good. It means you're alive in the process. Pain isn't a sign you're off track. It's proof you're on it. The absence of pain is not happiness, it's numbness. Don't chase numbness, chase strength. Strength isn't loud, it's silent. It's the quiet decision you make every morning to keep showing up. It's the invisible courage to hold your line when everything around you crumbles. It's not glamorous. No one will applaud you for it.
But one day, when you're standing on ground that used to bury you, you'll realize you became something extraordinary. Not because the world made room for you, but because you carved your own space inside it. And that is the point you've been missing. You don't need life to be fair. You need to be relentless. You don't need opportunities handed to you. You need to create them by refusing to disappear. The people you envy are not lucky. They're consistent. They learn to ignore the noise, to build while doubted, to keep moving when everyone else stopped to complain. You can do the same. You don't need applause. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to outlast the pain. Every day you survive is one more day your old self loses power. Every time you show up, you steal momentum from the version of you that wanted to quit. And one day, that version will die quietly, starved of attention, buried under your persistence. So if you're still thinking about quitting, fine. Quit being weak. Quit expecting it to be easy. Quit letting emotions decide the outcome. Quit telling yourself stories that make failure comfortable. The only thing worth quitting is the mindset that got you here. Burn it down. Step out of the ashes. Begin again. Not because you're unbroken, but because you're willing to build while broken. The people who change the world are not the ones who never fell apart. They're the ones who learned how to rebuild faster each time. You are one of them, whether you believe it yet or not. The moment you choose not to surrender, your new life begins, quietly, invisibly, but unmistakably.
The truth is that life will not hand you clarity. You create it through movement. And the longer you sit in confusion, the louder your doubts become until they convince you that standing still is safer than failing forward. But stillness is the slowest form of death. So start where you are and do the next thing you can with what you have. Because momentum doesn't come from motivation, it comes from motion. Most people wait to feel ready before they act, and that's why they never begin. But readiness is a feeling that arrives only after you've already started. So if you want a better life, stop asking what to do and start doing anything that builds you even 1 inch higher than yesterday. And yes, you will make mistakes. But mistakes are tuition fees for wisdom, and you pay them whether you like it or not. The difference is that the disciplined person gets a degree from their pain, while the careless one just repeats the same semester of failure forever. So learn fast, forgive yourself faster, and never confuse guilt with growth, because guilt freezes you while growth demands motion. Understand that consistency is more powerful than intensity. A single day of perfect work means nothing if it's followed by a week of excuses. So, simplify your habits until you can't fail at them. Make the bar low enough to start, but high enough to matter, and then repeat, because the secret to every transformation is boring repetition done with sacred purpose. You won't feel inspired every day. In fact, most days you'll feel nothing at all. But if you show up anyway, the universe takes notes, and slowly, the invisible world around you rearranges itself in your favor. And people will call it luck, but you will know it was discipline disguised as destiny. Stop comparing your timeline to anyone else's. You don't owe the world speed, you owe it depth. It's better to build something solid over years than to rise overnight on hollow effort and collapse just as fast. And never let other people's opinions be the compass for your path. Because advice from the unaccomplished is just disguised fear. They'll tell you to play safe, to be realistic, to aim smaller, but remember that realism is often pessimism wearing a polite mask. The world rewards those who act slightly delusional about what's possible. So dream audaciously, but plan practically. Build the bridge brick by brick, because dreaming without structure is fantasy, and structure without dreaming is slavery. You need both. Learn to enjoy solitude. Not the fake self-care version that's filled with distractions, but the kind that feels uncomfortable at first and then slowly becomes peace. Because solitude is where your voice becomes louder than the noise of the world. It's where you hear what you actually want. And if you can be content alone, you become immune to manipulation. Because nobody can bribe a person who already feels whole. Protect your energy like currency, because it is. Every conversation, every habit, every hour is either an investment or an expense, suspended on things that multiply you, not drain you. Stop giving discounts to people who never pay you in respect or effort. Your time is too expensive for cheap interactions. And if that means walking alone for a while, walk alone. The path of greatness is always narrow. It has room only for those who carry their own weight. And when fear whispers that you might fail, remind it that failure isn't fatal, it's feedback. Every closed door redirects you toward a better one if you keep walking. But if you sit and mourn in front of the closed door, you'll miss the window that just opened behind you. So treat setbacks as signals, not sentences. Treat pain as data, not identity. Because the moment you stop taking failure personally, you start learning objectively. And that is the mindset of growth. Understand also that success is seasonal. There will be winters of stagnation and summers of abundance. And your job is to plant seeds even when the ground feels frozen, because winter doesn't last forever. And when the sun returns, you will thank your past self for planting in faith. Never rush harvest, because fruit that grows too fast rots just as quickly. Let the process humble you. Let patience sculpt you, because you're not just building results, you're building a person capable of sustaining them. Money, fame, followers, none of that matters if you can't look in the mirror and respect the person staring back. So build character first. Everything else will follow naturally. Remember that nobody truly knows what they're doing, not even the people who look confident. They're improvising too, so stop waiting to feel certain. The confident ones simply act through uncertainty long enough to make it look easy. And finally, keep your promises to yourself no matter how small, because every time you keep a promise, you deposit self-trust, and every time you break one, you withdraw it. And when the account runs dry, you lose belief in yourself. So guard that account fiercely. Build the kind of discipline that feels like love, because that's what it is. Self-love isn't indulgence, it's accountability. It's telling yourself the truth even when it hurts. It's demanding more from yourself because you deserve more from life. And if you live by that code, discipline as love, purpose as direction, patience as weapon, then no matter what chaos life throws your way, you will not fall apart. You will bend, you will adapt, and you will rise stronger every single time.